Check 1, 2.
Looking for Mariella, who's going to do the board announcements. On her way.
Julia's working on it. It's good.
Good morning. I think the mic is on. Okay, we got some really great announcements this morning. Good morning, I'm Mariella from the Congregation's Board of Directors. First, a note from the pledge team. You may recall last week we were $16,000 shy of our goal of $328,000. We are now only $9,000 shy. So if you want to be the exciting opportunity to be that last 9,000, please throw your money into the pledge campaign. That would be so cool. And we're only $1,000 shy of the Help Staff Help Us goal of $23,000. So if you plan to pledge soon, or after the fall fair, or after I talk to my partner, the time is now. We're almost ready to close the pledge campaign down. From the Environmental Action Group, last week the congregation sent a strongly worded against response to the bill proposing to remove bike lanes. And there is still time to sign the petition about the Fossil Fuel Advertising Act. Check the Climate Action page for how to do that. There are 3 concerts coming up. First of all, this Wednesday, December 4th, the 32-piece Beacon Community Concert Band will perform Christmas and other music. This concert will be emceed by our own Maury Prevost over there, waving his hand. The concert starts at 7. It's a benefit for the food cupboard. Come early to see how they're going to fit 32 instruments on this stage. I'm really curious how that's going to work. And stay late to join us for seasonal cheer, i.e. wine, in Fellowship Hall, all for a great cause. Then our second concert on Monday, December 16th, join us, Music Gen and friends, for our annual Carols and Songs Sing-Along. Come ready to sing lots of Christmas carols. It's a really fun event. And finally, on Tuesday, December 17th, as First Unitarian Liaison to Unitarian House, I'm very proud to announce our first jointly sponsored concert, sponsored with the Unitarian House Residents Association. It's going to be a great group called the Polished Brass Quintet. They'll be playing seasonal favorites. The concert's in the afternoon at 2 p.m., so for those of you who can't come to concerts because they start too late, come to this one. It'll be great. From 2 to 3:30 is the concert, and there'll be a light reception afterwards. Note, this is really important. A lot of our concerts are benefits, but this one is absolutely free. We will not accept donations, even if you throw them at us. This is meant to be a gift to the congregation and to Unitarian House, so bring all your friends. And finally, I just want to mention 2 activities happening after the service today. First, there'll be an Advent spiral in the Now Room from 11:45 until 12:15 for anyone who wants to experience this lovely tradition. This candlelit labyrinth walk is a gentle, contemplative ritual of silence, song, and meaningful movement, perfect for this season. And our bi-weekly after-service conversation in the lounge returns. So if you're interested in having an engaging discussion about the themes and learnings from today's service, and Lee Rose will be sharing some great stuff about grandmothers, grab some food in Fellowship Hall and head to the lounge after the service where coffee will be available. Thank you.
Good morning. Our opening song this morning will be We Rise by Batya Levine for one more week. With this in mind, I may break into some harmonies at some point because it's my last chance. And you are encouraged to do the same thing from your seat. So. right. We rise, humbly hearted, rise, won't be divided, rise, with spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here in hope, in prayer. We find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here, we rise. All of the children rise. Elders with wisdom rise. Ancestors surround us rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here in hope, in prayer. We find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here, we rise. Up from the wreckage, rise. With tears and with courage, rise. Fighting for life, we rise. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everyone to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or watching from wherever you may be, you are welcome. Reverend Eric is on assignment this week, so Lee and I are here for today's service. I am Mary, your worship associate, and Lee will be sharing a reflection on the wisdom of grandparents. Now, Lee has prepared a really interesting service, as always, so just settle back and enjoy it. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all those that have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Let's join our voices in song once more. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing together. We Are, number 1051, in Singing the Journey, which is the Teal hymnal. The lyrics will also be on the screen above.
Who Oh, yes, sorry, Mary. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
It's okay, he prepares it and then he goes ahead and changes it, so that's his right. As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it is available at the welcome table at the back of the pews, and Eva is there waving to us all. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Sign-up information is available on our website under the Communications tab and as a QR code on the back of our printed programs. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though some of our activities take place online. This morning, each of us is welcome. We of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all part of the spiritual community. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning and happy Sunday to each of you. This morning, we light our chalice to the opening stanzas of the poem Prayer in a Time of Awe by Maureen Killerman. Holy grandparents of the universe, energies of creation, endless mysteries of life, you are the music that sounded before our world was born, sound and silence woven through the ages, far beyond the most profound wisdom humanity has ever been able to touch. Be with us, deepen our willingness to live without certainty, to take the risks of living on the edges of our creativity, to step beyond the boundaries of possibility and hope. Help us always to remember that we are in our essence the magic of star stuff, that we are kin to all that is and was and may yet come to be. Our chalice is lit. Come, let us worship together as we begin by singing our chalice song.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jody McIntosh. I'm the Director of Religious Exploration. I have a guest with me this morning, my friend Margaret. So our theme today is the wisdom of grandparents. Our story today is called I Hope by Monique Gray Smith. I want you to imagine that these are the hopes that a grandparent has for their grandchild. I am many things, including a mother, but I am not a grandmother, or not yet. So I brought my friend Margaret today to help us share the story. So please raise your eyes to the screen above and focus your ears on Margaret to listen to our story, I Hope.
I hope that you and those you love know joy. I hope that you are kind. I hope you have belly laughs. I hope you love to learn. I hope that when sad tears leave your eyes, someone is there to catch them. I hope you are helpful. I hope you know beautiful happiness. I hope you play outside. I hope you are a caretaker of Mother Earth. I hope that when you need a hug, there are loving arms to hold you.
Thank you, Margaret. We will now sing Our Children on Our Way, and we are doing a special activity today, the Advent Spiral. So if any parent would like to come down with their child, you are very welcome, and we will go down this aisle as our tradition. Thank you.
Each week, we pause in our time together in recognition of the joys and sorrows in our lives and across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges by placing a stone in a bowl of water. As the ripples extend outward, imagine them continuing out beyond these small bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. Mary, if I can get you to help me with our initial offerings. First, a stone of sorrow and remembrance today on World AIDS Day, for all the people we've lost to this disease here at home and around the world. A stone of joy and gratitude for all of the advocacy and scientific advancements that means that with proper access to treatment and medicine, that an HIV infection is no longer a terminal illness, but a manageable condition. A stone of joy for the beauty of crisp and clear near winter nights and the brightness of stars in the sky. Please come forward now to honor your own joys and sorrows by placing stones in water. That last stone, as always, represents all that remains in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Today we have caring cards of celebration at the back of the hall for us to sign. One for Marc Brunet, who successfully defended his PhD thesis recently. Congratulations, Marc. Another for Catherine Pope, as a note of thanks for her great leadership in organizing FirstU's very successful Fall Fair fundraiser. Thank you, Catherine. All those in favor of making sure that Catherine continues next year, say aye. Motion carried. Let us move now into a time of stillness and reflection. After several moments, we'll come back together through the gift of music. This morning, in place of we set up a little living room here. I don't know if you can tell here, but we're setting up here. I'd like to invite Joan, Linda, and Sheila to join me up on stage. This morning, in place of a regular reading, I'm delighted that we're going to be visiting a human library of sorts in a conversation with a trio of grandmothers who are all members of the Unitarian Go-Go's. You guys can share this mic. Okay, we're good. So Joan is a grandmother to 4 children. She's been an active Unitarian since about 1975 and is one of the founding members of the Unitarian Go-Go's, being actively involved for almost 18 years. In fact, she went to Africa with other Canadian grannies and staff of the Stephen Lewis Foundation in 2008. Welcome, Joan. And then we have Sheila, a grandmother to 4 children, step-grandmother to 2, and surrogate grandmother to many more through Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign. Welcome, Sheila. And finally, we have Linda, a grandmother to 4 children. She's been supporting the Go-Go's for the past 6.5 years, mostly in promoting their events and participating when she's able. Welcome, Linda. I hope you guys are comfortable. There's glasses of water here if we need. You can get real comfortable. They're waiting for us anyways, we're good. As I mentioned earlier during our Joys and Sorrows, today is World AIDS Day, and so it's rather auspicious to have you join us here today as grandmothers who are connected with the Unitarian Go-Go's, which sprung out of another women's group here at FirstU when the Stephen Lewis Foundation brought African women and Canadian women together for the first time. As we know, this was a time of great need with many African grandmothers who were taking on the responsibility to care for and raise their grandchildren, as so many of their own adult children were dying from AIDS. After today's service, Joan, Linda, and Sheila will be available in Fellowship Hall if you want to learn more about the Unitarian Go-Go's and their work with the Stephen Lewis Foundation around HIV/AIDS and other community initiatives. But for now, considering the theme of our service, the wisdom of grandparents, I'd like to invite each of you to share a pearl of wisdom for life or living from your own experience as grandmothers with members of the congregation today. So Joan, in email exchanges getting ready, you mentioned the song Keep Moving Forward, and not to let life's difficulties, challenges, or obstacles get in the way or stop you. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. That song that I haven't sung for a long time just was an earworm all week until I finally realized that, okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. Keep moving forward. I've had amazing opportunities in life, and but like every human being, the path has not always been easy nor smooth. And I want to give you one example. Joe and I were happily living in Winnipeg, but we promised our daughter that we would help support her in her decision to return to school to become a psychiatrist. She was already a family physician. And in her final year, by which time she had two small children, her child care person kept getting ill, and it would be like, help, Mom. So one of us would fly down to Ottawa and help until as long as we could, and then we'd fly back home. But very soon we realized that that really wasn't enough. And so we made the big decision to leave the house we loved and the community we were really a part of, and to move to Ottawa. So in July 2003, we moved here, and we were here when Joy's third child was born, and we were actually at her birth, which was an amazing experience. And then when Amy, the eldest, fell on the soccer field, and it turned out she had osteosarcoma, the same kind of cancer that Terry Fox had, we were here to help out with the two youngest. And so I'm thinking that as life turned out, it was a wise decision to move here. But you never really quite know when you make a decision how it will be, because we have rich and deep and wonderful memories of our experiences with our grandchildren. 3 here and 1 out west. And we wish that for everyone. If you're not already a grandparent, if you can have lovely memories and experiences and keep on moving forward.
Thank you so much for that, Joan. Linda, you shared with me that sometimes as a grandmother, mother-in-law, and you talk about being a bonus mom, that you have to remind yourself to step back and support your extended family in a way which they want to be supported. Can you tell me more about that?
Thanks, sure. I was saying that I have to always, I have to remind myself to step back and support the extended family in the way that they want to be supported. It may just be a listening ear, maybe to watch a child or drive a child to an event when the parents are double booked, or it may mean asking them if they'd like my advice. I try to support my children to make their own choices, understanding that those choices will quite often have consequences. I believe my role is to help set them up for success long after I'm gone. We're all given the same number of hours in a day, and many of us have also been impacted by losses due to health issues like Alzheimer's, ALS, heart and stroke, and cancer. It's an ongoing, difficult decision, but I choose to volunteer my time for some local charities and then for the grandmothers in Africa. And if I could just mention a few things, it's about the Grandmother to Grandmother campaign. I have the most admiration for those grandmothers as they stepped in to raise their orphaned grandchildren. I could try to put myself in that position, but I didn't like the feeling, okay? So the role they fill is so critical for the next generation as they continue to deal with HIV and AIDS on a daily basis. I recently read that many of Stephen Lewis's foundation partners began when HIV treatment was largely unavailable in the communities across Africa. While there have been important gains against the epidemic, women and girls continue to be disproportionately affected by HIV due to gender inequalities and violence. 2 of my grandchildren are girls, so for me, this really hits home. One of the main reasons that I like to support the Stephen Lewis Foundation is the fact that they partner with groups that have deep connections to the people who are affected. They don't tell them what to do. They give them support so they can walk together as partners, as human beings. The way they operate ensures that the funds that we raise get directly to those people who know what the communities need. They restore hope, resilience, and well-being for individuals, which I believe is something that everyone deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And Sheila, finally with you, you shared something with me about the unique role that grandparents play in families and in the broader community. What does that look like for you?
Well, I think that both Joan and Linda have talked about this with their personal experiences, but what I found on becoming a grandparent was, my feeling was, I'm here, how can I help? And I think that in that way, you, as Joan said, you have no idea what it is you're going to be doing, and as you said also, Linda, you may be stepping back when they need to show that they know, parents know what to do. You need to be stepping forward when they're having, whether it's somebody sick in the family or work interferes. And so being there, I think, was how I felt I would be the most helpful. And you also get to experience, when you are there in every role, all kinds of joys and sorrows, but I found that when you needed to step forward, then you got a much more intimate relationship with the grandkids. You get to parent them, and when you're stepping back, you just get to enjoy all the great things without, when they start to fuss, you give them back to mom and dad, which, is how you start off as a grandparent. But then there's always this underlying knowledge that you'll do anything for your grandchildren, and that's exactly how we can segue into the grandmothers movement, that these grandparents who in Africa always played a very strong role in helping raise the children, but suddenly found that not only were they raising their grandchildren, but without any support, because their support had been their children who supported them financially as they supported the family. So they had to find other ways to support themselves. And it's amazing some of the things that these grandmothers did. I know when I visited South Africa and Ethiopia in 2014, there was such a variety of different groups that grandmothers had formed. And one of them was a nurse who'd lost both her children and her husband to AIDS. And she sold their home and started a group that cooked meals for children every day at lunch, and also supported people with HIV, and had a grandmother's group for the grandmothers to come and get moral support. Mama Zaudwa was her name, and it was just amazing to see how many people were helped from this grandmother. So that's, I'm here, how can I help? That's my philosophy. And also, I know there are many grand-others who also play this role, and we always say with Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign, it's actually grand-others to the grand-others in Africa who are making a difference.
Thank you. So Sheila, Linda, and Joan, I want to thank each of you for joining us on behalf of the congregation today, and grandchildren everywhere. for sharing your thoughts with us and for the work that you're doing, for the time, energy, and love that you put into your work with the Unitarian Go-Go's. And a reminder, you'll be able to learn more inside at Fellowship Hall after the service. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Before we do today's anthem, I want to do a very quick plug for this week is the first week of Christmas choir at FirstU. So I did want to mention that if you don't normally sing with our choirs because the weekly commitment is too much, on Thursdays in December at 7 p.m., you can come here and we'll be preparing some music for the December season. So you're welcome to join us. Today, Three Rivers will be performing 1,000 Grandmothers by Holly Near, a wonderful ode to the power of grandmothers. Yeah.
Surely volunteer.
Thank you, Jen and Three Rivers. It's a tough act to follow. I've got my box of Kleenex ready, just a warning, because it might be that kind of reflection today. I'm grateful to be here with all of you on this first Sunday in December to share a reflection on a topic that I've been thinking about a lot lately, the wisdom of grandparents. Again, I'd like to thank Joan, Sheila, and Linda for sharing some of their own wisdom as grandmothers with all of us this morning. The topic seems apropos for this time of year, as the approaching holidays are a time to come together with friends, family, and loved ones. It's also a time to remember, celebrate, and honor the love and the time we shared with important people in our lives who are no longer with us. For me, that includes remembering, celebrating, and honoring the love and time I shared with each of my grandparents. As some of you may know, I've lived a pretty itinerant life. My father was in the military, so we moved around a lot. When I close my eyes and think about home, I don't think about all the houses and apartments I lived in growing up. I think about the homes of my grandparents. One, the home of my dad's parents on Rue du Mât in the working-class neighborhood of Wrightville, just across the river in Hull. And the other, a lovely semi-detached on Rue Joliette between Sherbrooke and Rachel in Montreal, where my mom's parents lived. Growing up, these were the places I called home, the places where our family gathered, with living rooms you were forbidden from entering, or furniture covered in protective plastic, with snacks in the pantry and games in the cupboard. At Christmas, New Year's, and in the height of summer, with aunts and uncles and cousins. There was always more food than anyone could eat, and pictures of Jesus with eyes that seemed to follow you everywhere. And so today I'd like to share a brief story about each of my grandparents and a lesson for life and for living that I hold from each of them. I'll start with my maternal grandfather, Norbert Dubois. I think there's a picture of him and me there. When I was about 10 years old, clearly not 10 years old in that photo, my grandparents sold their home and moved to the Olympic Village, those iconic and brutalist concrete pyramids built to house athletes competing in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. While still in the same neighborhood of Rosemount, the Olympic Village and their apartment on the 10th floor of Pyramide B, just on the other side of the Montreal Botanical Gardens, were both a single metro stop and a world away from their house on Joliette Street. To a 10-year-old, and maybe to many adults, the pyramids are impressive and wondrous structures. Their footprint stretches over 2 city blocks, and they reach 23 stories into the sky. The uniformed doorman who buzzed their apartment, announcing our arrival, the elevators, the swimming pool, the shopping concourse with hair salon, grocery store, and Caisse Populaire, the garbage chutes. A visit to Grandmama and Grandpapa's new apartment was always an adventure. I remember visiting one summer in July around my birthday. After dinner, my grandfather invited everyone up to the rooftop terrace for a special surprise. At this point, I'd visited my grandparents in their new apartment several times, but I'd never been to, or even known of the existence of, this mysterious rooftop terrace. It was a beautiful evening. The sky was clear and the view of the city was spectacular. After a few minutes, we heard a boom and saw a flash in the sky. My grandfather directed our attention towards the river and a display of fireworks lighting up the night sky. He looked over at me with a wink and a smile. "Happy birthday, Lee. We ordered those fireworks just for you." It was only years later that I figured out that my grandfather hadn't, in fact, ordered those fireworks just for me, that the evening's dazzling display was just one of several nights of pyrotechnics that were part of the annual Montreal Fireworks Festival, sponsored by Benson & Hedges, a multinational tobacco company. And so the wisdom I hold from my grandfather, Norbert Dubois, is that often there is magic in the mystery, that you can revel in the making or experiencing of a feeling of awe or wonder, that things as exciting as a birthday fireworks display or the functioning of a garbage chute don't always need to be explained, understood, or figured out, at least not always in the moment. Merci, grand-papa, merci. My maternal grandmother, Jacqueline Guerrier-Py, moved into a smaller apartment in the village, and settled into a different rhythm after my grandfather's passing. She had a close circle of friends, mostly widows, who looked out for one another. accompanying each other to doctor's appointments and catching up on gossip under the hair dryers in the salon. This new rhythm included an annual summer tour when Grandmama would pack her suitcase and spend time visiting each of her 5 children and the assortment of grand and great-grandchildren and other family members that were peppered across the eastern part of Canada and the United States. I remember stopping by my parents' house one afternoon and hearing my mother on the phone talking to one of her sisters, my Aunt Didi. I deduced from the side of the conversation I could hear that plans were being made about Grandmama's upcoming summer tour, specifically the sequencing of visits and who between them would have the task of driving her to my uncle's in Albany. As the conversation and debate between sisters ensued, I sat on the sofa, pulled out my cell phone, and called Grandmama. When the topic of her summer tour came up, she said that she was still waiting for her itinerary to be finalized, and she wasn't sure who was going to be driving her to Albany. I looked across the room at my mom, still on the phone with my aunt, and told Grandmama, it would be my pleasure to drive you to Albany. We shared a knowing laugh. I told her that I loved her and hung up. I went to my mom and told her and my aunt through the phone that it was all sorted, that I would be Grandmama's ride to Albany before heading out, leaving them both to the rest of their conversation. I will cherish the memory of that 6-hour road trip driving Grandmama and her world-famous carrot cake to Albany forever. We laughed, we cried, we stopped at the duty-free for bottles of Bombay Sapphire Gin, my choice, and Patron Tequila, hers. We had lunch at a roadside diner somewhere in upstate New York, splitting a club sandwich with way too much mayo and fries that needed way more salt. Don't tell your Aunt Jo or my cardiologist, Grandmama implored, as she held the shaker over the thick-cut fries. She shared stories about my grandfather, my mom, and my aunts and uncles, swearing me to secrecy after having confessed hilarious, surprising or not so surprising, insights about each of them. She recalled memories of me and my siblings as children, memories that I saw for the first time from another point of view. She thought aloud about how wonderful it was for her to be driven to Albany by the same little boy who often refused to put on his pajamas after a bath. And so the wisdom I hold from my grandmama, Jacqueline Garrier-Py, and our 6-hour drive to Albany is the reminder that we are all multidimensional beings. That while our day-to-day interactions with each other are usually within the context of only one of those dimensions, parent, partner, friend, or colleague, it's important to remember that each of us also carries other dimensions that shape, inform, and influence our being. My mother and aunt are also daughters. They are sisters. They are friends and colleagues to others as well. And I can be both a loving grandson and a fully clothed chauffeur. Merci, Grandmama, merci. When I think about my paternal grandparents, René Rose and Madeleine Larivière, known to me and to many simply as ma mère and pépère, it's hard to think about a specific moment or lesson that I've learned from each of them. It's more an amalgam of memories of time spent in their home on Rue du Mât. While it wasn't obvious to me growing up, it's clear to me now how hard my grandparents worked and how modestly they lived. My grandfather worked at Steinberg's, a grocery store, for 45 years. My grandmother worked there too for a while and also ran a daycare from her home. They clipped coupons, bought in bulk, on sale, and paid cash for nearly everything. Ma mère always started her day with a cup of Tetley tea, usually taken from the comfort of her rocking chair in the corner of the dining room. When finished, she'd strain the tea bag and set it on the top of the stove for reuse again later that day. Pépère always wore the same inexpensive gray Velcro sneakers from Zellers. And when I say wore, I mean wore, wearing them until they were completely and utterly worn out before going out to buy another pair. They didn't own fancy Tupperware or Rubbermaid containers. They reused ice cream containers and yogurt tubs, bought on sale, obviously, when preparing batches of home-cooked meals. I learned to temper my excitement whenever I opened the freezer because those containers of Neapolitan ice cream were more likely to be spaghetti sauce or stew. They raised my dad and my uncles, took care of members of a large extended family, including a gaggle of 6 grandchildren from that modest home and on modest incomes. I remember one time the entire family had gathered for a summer barbecue. I was swimming in the pool when my mère yelled my name from the porch and said she had something for me to do. In the kitchen and away from the hustle in the yard, she asked me to take my wagon and run to the dépanneur down the street to return the empties, pick up a case of beer, a pack of cigarettes, and 2 loaves of fresh-baked bread. Yes, this was a time and a neighborhood when you could send a 9-year-old in a wet bathing suit on an errand to buy cigarettes and beer for his grandma. After repeating her instructions, she reached for her wallet, the kind of wallet I imagine most grandmothers carry, weathered gray leather, filled with photos of grandchildren, various forms of government ID, a checkbook, discount cards and coupons, and pulled out a crisp, unfolded $50 bill. This was a lot of money, not only to me as a 9-year-old, but as I've come to know and appreciate since, also to her and my grandfather. Which makes her final whispered instruction to buy candy for me and my cousins so much more meaningful. Years later after her passing, I found myself standing in the same kitchen, helping to clean up and pack things into boxes, the house being sold to a young family, and my grandfather preparing to move in with my parents. It was strange to be there in that moment, knowing there would be no more gatherings or new memories for our family in this little unassuming house on Rue du Mât. As we moved the stove to clean up behind it, I looked down on the floor and smiled, seeing a pair of dried-up Tetley tea bags that had fallen from the top of the stove, never having the chance to be reused. What a waste, she would have thought. And so the wisdom I hold from Mère and Pépère is that wealth isn't defined by the balance in your bank account, the grandeur of your home, or the kind of car you drive. That true wealth is measured in the kindness, the generosity, and the love that you share and put into the world. That is what really matters and what people will remember. Merci, mes mères and pépères, merci. And now, while all 4 of my own grandparents have passed, I am fortunate to still have a grandmother in my life, in Lise Faneuf, known affectionately to her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and me, simply as Mamie Lise. Mamie Lise is the maternal grandmother of my partner, Charlie Vick. And if you'll permit me, I'd like to share a final story and a pearl of wisdom from her. I first met Mamie Lise nearly 9 years ago. Charlot and I had only been dating for a few months when he invited me to go home with him for Christmas. This was obviously a no-pressure trip, a 5-hour drive into the wilderness of northern Quebec to meet his entire blended family over the holidays with no emergency escape. The trip had all the makings of a Hallmark holiday movie. I wasn't sure what to expect. While I was falling head over heels for Charlot, I was nervous about what his family would think of me, especially this mythical Mamie Lise, whose reputation and role as matriarch of his family seemed almost reverential. No pressure, right? It was clear to me that there was something special about Charlot's relationship with his grandmother, who also happened to be his godmother. The way he gushed about her legendary potato salad, and the way he doted on her and faked a fight with his brothers for the honor of sitting next to her at dinner. The way he got away was sharing a wildly inappropriate joke at the table, a joke at which Mamie Lise laughed the hardest and the longest, the kind of tear-jerking, nearly choking on an ill-timed bite of legendary potato salad, heave-inducing and life-affirming fit of laughter that required several deep breaths and residual giggles to recover from. The way he told her to back off and find her own man when she offered me a kind compliment, before looking over at me with a wink and a cheeky smile from across the table. The French translation for your in-laws is ta belle famille, literally your beautiful family. That Christmas was a beautiful introduction to a beautiful family, a family that I'm so fortunate to be a part of. Over the years since that first Christmas with ma belle famille, through visits and conversations, I've learned more about Mamie Lise, the joys, the hardships, and the lessons she's learned in her 84 years and counting of life. Perhaps most profoundly, I've learned that Mamie Lise is a woman who has experienced and who holds more than her fair share of grief. One of her 4 children, Danielle, died tragically at the age of 16. 2 years later, her husband, Claude, suffered a terrible accident, which left him in care for more than 17 years before he died, a time during which she visited him daily and continued to care for him. Lucien, another partner she shared a part of her life with, has also passed away. And a year and a half ago, she lost one of her grandchildren, my partner, notre beau Charlot. A child, 2 partners, a grandson. I don't think I know another person who has lived as long and has lost as many as Mamie Lise. My visits and calls with Mamie have taken on in different meetings since Charlot's passing. Whether she's sharing the latest gossip about her neighbors in the residence, and there's lots of gossip, recounting stories of Charlot's childhood, or asking me about how the kids and I are doing, each interaction and conversation is cherished. The last time I visited, I remember pausing mid-conversation when I caught a glimpse of a photo of Charlot and I that hangs on the wall in her room. Catching my distraction, she looked up at the photo and we sat together in a brief moment of silence. There was a gentle knowing shared in that moment, a manifestation of love, grief, and compassion expressed without needing to utter a single word. And so the wisdom I hold from Mamie Lise is a lesson about resilience, about accepting eventually and adapting to what life might throw in your path. And that grief isn't something you'll ever get over, but something you move through and that will always be a part of you. A beautiful reminder of the love you will hold forever in your heart for those that you've lost. And also, perhaps as importantly, sometimes it's okay to share a dirty joke with your grandma and revel in the pure delight and joy of laughter. Merci, Mamie, merci. As I draw this reflection to a close, I'd like to thank each of you for listening as I shared these stories about my grandparents and the lessons for life and for living that I carry from each of them. And whether you yourself are a grandparent or a grandchild, take joy and find gratitude in knowing that you also have such lessons and wisdoms to share and to learn from each other. Thank you.
Before we continue with the service, I would just like to say that Lee thanked us for listening. And I think we want to thank him for being here, for organizing the service. I told you it would be super, and I think it has been. He's brought grandmothers here. He's brought the whole thing to do with Stephen Lewis, and the AIDS situation, and then Lee's own personal stories. And I think it's been a wonderful, wonderful service, as it always is with Lee. I'm very pleased to work with him. And I know some of you came specifically because it was going to be on grandmothers, and I know some of you came specifically because Lee was going to be here, and some of you just came as all of us do because we support this congregation all of the time. But he thanked you, and I'd like to thank Lee and our guests for being here and for having such a thought-provoking and very warm service. Now, I would ask our ushers to please start passing the baskets at this time. Thank you. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. We rely on one another to keep this congregation vital and resilient. If you have any questions about how you can give, please go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And now let us sing together once more. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing What Gift We Can Bring, which you'll find is number 404 in Singing in the Living Tradition, which is the gray hymnal. The words will also be up on the screen.
What gift can we bring? What present, what token, what words can convey it? The joy of this day, when grateful we come, remembering, rejoicing, what song can we offer in honor and praise? Give thanks for the past, for those who had vision, who planted and watered so dreams could come true. Give thanks for the now, for study, for worship, for mission that bids us turn prayer into deed. This gift we now bring, this present, this token, these words can convey it, the joy of this day, when grateful we come, remembering, rejoicing, this song we now offer in honor and praise.
Before we begin to close our time of worship and reflection, a reminder that coffee hour will begin in Fellowship Hall immediately after the service. Leafy greens, as always, courtesy of Ajaski, are available for those who would like from the grow towers in the older volunteer room, or the former volunteer room, in Fellowship Hall, as our food and household items from our grocery support program. There will also be hot food available for sale during coffee hour, courtesy of Mustafa's Restaurant. Again, cash only for that. Reminder, as Mariella said earlier, if you're interested in deeper conversation around today's topic, there'll be a discussion group in the lounge following the service, and the Advent Spiral is taking place at 11:45 in the Now room downstairs. If you're new here, still feel new, or simply welcome conversation today, there's an imaginary green mug in my hand. Please grab a real green mug in Fellowship Hall as you enter. Doing so will help others look forward to a good conversation to find you. And if you see someone sporting a green mug, approach them, ask them about who they are and what drew them here this morning, the start to another great conversation. And now, as we prepare to extinguish our chalice, we'll return to the words of Maureen Killerman and the closing stanzas of the poem Prayer in the Time of Awe. Help us always to remember that we are, in the essence, the magic of star stuff, that we are kin to all that is and was and may yet come to be. Teach us to temper our impatience, to retain our conviction that what we do makes a difference, that even our smallest act can contribute to the good of a greater whole. Be with me in my uncertainties. Rejoice with my small triumphs. Comfort my losses. Remind me I am never alone, not in my joys or in my tears. In the blessing of our silence, may I feel your presence, something greater than I have yet been able to comprehend. Jen, will you please bless us again by leading us in our closing song, Spirit of Life, or our special guest star today, Callie, in our closing hymn, Spirit of Life, which you'll find is number 123 in the Teal hymnal. We'll sing it through first in English and then en français. Thank you very much, Callie. And that's officially a wrap, folks. May we always remember that we are people of love, providing a place in this world for our spirit, a place to call home. And now, as we return to the challenge and joy of helping the world come alive in love, let us go forward with love in our hearts, sowing seeds of justice from our hands and peace in our steps. Go in peace, my friends. Go making peace. Happy Sunday. Oh, thank you, Reg. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm grateful. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Happy Sunday.